You are worthless trash. Trash, Nadia. You were nothing before me, and you will be nothing after me. Trent Langford said it loud. He stood up in the middle of a Fairfax County courtroom, pointed at his wife, and said it like he was ordering coffee. His attorney grabbed his arm. Trent shook him off. 4 years I wasted dragging around dead weight. You think that little doctor title changes what you are? Please. Nadia Ellis sat across the aisle, hands folded. She did not flinch. She did not respond. The judge stared. The court reporter's fingers froze above the keys. The whole room held its breath. And nobody, not Trent, not his lawyer, not a single person in that gallery, had any idea that Nadia's mother was already in the parking lot. Her mother, a federal judge. Have you ever watched a man destroy his entire life with his own mouth? Man, he really just said all that out loud. Let us see how this plays out. Let me take you back. In the morning, Arlington, Virginia. The alarm buzzed in a small one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a red brick building. Nothing fancy, clean countertops, a coffee maker already set on a timer. The smell of dark roast filled the kitchen before Nadia Ellis even opened her eyes. She sat up on the edge of the bed, rubbed her face with both hands, took a breath. This was her life now. She had moved out of the house she paid for. She preferred the quiet. Nadia walked to the bathroom, brushed her teeth, pulled her hair back into a low bun. She stared at herself in the mirror for a long moment, not out of vanity, out of something closer to a pep talk without words. Today was the day. On the kitchen counter sat a stack of medical files. Nadia was a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Georgetown University Hospital, one of the youngest department leads in the hospital's history. Howard University undergrad, Johns Hopkins Medical School. A Rhodes Scholar plaque hung on the wall next to the front door, the only decoration she had bothered to unpack. Next to the coffee maker sat a framed photograph. A tall, silver-haired black woman in judicial robes, beaming, pinning a medical badge onto a younger Nadia's white coat. That woman was Judge Vivian Ellis, United States Court of Appeals, D.C. Circuit. 30 years on the federal bench, twice shortlisted for the Supreme Court. That woman was Nadia's mother. Nadia picked up the photo, ran her thumb across the glass, set it back down, poured her coffee. She did not call her mother that morning. Vivian had said she had a conflict on her calendar and could not make it to the hearing. Nadia told her it was fine. She meant it. She had handled worse things alone. She had married Trent Langford. They met at a charity gala in Georgetown. He was charming, confident, wore a nice suit, laughed at all the right moments. He pursued her with the kind of energy that felt flattering at first. It stopped being flattering fast. Within the first year, Trent started making comments. Small ones at first, a joke about her hair, a remark about her neighborhood growing up, a laugh when she mentioned her family's church in Southeast D.C. Then, the jokes stopped being jokes. "You are lucky I married you." He said that during an argument about dishes. Dishes. That degree does not change what you are. He whispered that one night after dinner with his parents. His mother had spent the entire evening calling Nadia so articulate. Behind closed doors, he called her ghetto when she raised her voice. He called her aggressive when she disagreed. He told her she should be grateful. Every single day, he found a new way to make her feel small. She endured it, quietly, the way she had been taught, with dignity, with patience, with the hope that people could change. They do not. She filed for divorce. Trent laughed when he got the papers, actually laughed. Then, he hired the most aggressive attorney he could find and told anyone who would listen that Nadia had used him and thrown him away. The divorce had dragged on. Trent wanted half of everything. The house Nadia paid for, the cars in her name, the investment accounts funded by her surgical bonuses. His attorney, Harlan Reed, filed motion after motion, subpoenaed her colleagues, demanded financial records, turning a straightforward divorce into warfare. Trent's mother, Claire Langford, even submitted a written declaration. She called Nadia difficult and ungrateful. She wrote that Nadia had never truly fit in with the family. The language was careful. The meaning was clear. But Nadia's attorney, Rachel Foster, was ready. She had spent months building a case file that read like a textbook on domestic abuse. Text messages, voicemails, bank records, everything documented, everything time-stamped, everything admissible. Now, Nadia stood in front of her closet. She chose a navy blazer, simple gold earrings, flat shoes. She looked professional. She looked calm. Inside, her stomach was a knot. She grabbed her keys, locked the apartment door, and drove to Fairfax County Family Court. Her brother, Jamal Ellis, a retired Marine, was already there, sitting in the gallery, saving her a seat with his jacket draped over the chair beside him. Her mother's seat stayed empty. The courtroom filled. The bailiff called the room to order. Judge Patricia Moore entered and took the bench. The hearing began. Harlan Reed stood up first. He buttoned his jacket with one hand and walked toward the center of the courtroom like he owned it. Mid-50s, silver watch, hair slicked back, the kind of lawyer who practiced his opening statement in the mirror every morning. Your Honor, my client, Trent Langford, gave years of his life to this marriage. Harlan paused for effect. Let that sentence sit in the air. He put his ambitions aside. He managed the household. He created the stability that allowed Dr. Ellis to pursue her medical career without distraction. Harlan placed a folder on the edge of the judge's bench. Inside, you will find financial records showing that Mr. Langford covered household expenses during Dr. Ellis's residency, groceries, utilities, car insurance. While she was building her career, he was keeping the lights on. He turned slightly toward Nadia, not enough to look at her, just enough to make sure the judge noticed. She would not be where she is today without my client's sacrifices. And now, after everything he gave, she wants to walk away and leave him with nothing. That is not a partnership. That is abandonment. Rachel Foster did not react. She wrote something on her notepad, a single word. She underlined it twice. Judge Moore nodded. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Langford, you may take the stand. Trent stood up slowly. He adjusted his tie, ran a hand through his hair, then walked to the witness stand with the posture of a man who believed every room he entered was lucky to have him. He sat down, took a breath, and began performing. Your Honor, I just want to say this has been the hardest period of my life. His voice cracked slightly. Practiced. I loved my wife. I gave her everything I had. I supported her through medical school, through residency, through those long weeks when she was never home. He paused, looked down at his hands. I sacrificed my own career growth because I believed in hers. I handled the house. I handled the bills. I made sure she had a home to come back to every night. Another pause, a slow exhale. And then one day, she just decided I was not enough anymore. He shook his head. The picture of a wounded man. The performance of a lifetime. Harlan stepped in with soft, rehearsed questions. Did you ever feel neglected during the marriage? All the time, Trent said quietly. She was always at the hospital, always working. I would cook dinner and eat alone. I would go to bed alone. After a while, I started to wonder if I even mattered. And when you raised these concerns with her, she told me I was being dramatic. Trent's jaw tightened. She said I should be grateful she was providing for us, like I was some kind of charity case. In the gallery, Jamal Ellis shifted in his seat. His jaw clenched. He had heard Nadia's side of this story. Every word Trent said was a mirror image, flipped, distorted, reversed. Nadia sat still. Her pen rested on the table. She did not write. She did not react. She had already lived through every lie he was telling. Hearing them again under oath did not make them more true. It just made them louder. Judge Moore made notes. Her face gave nothing away. Then Rachel Foster stood up. Mr. Langford, she said calmly, you testified that you covered household expenses during your wife's residency. Is that correct? Yes. And you characterized this as a significant financial sacrifice. It was. Rachel opened a folder. I would like to enter Exhibit D into the record, Your Honor. These are complete bank statements from a joint account held by Mr. Langford and Dr. Ellis. She slid copies to the judge, to Harlan, and placed one in front of Trent. Mr. Langford, can you tell me who deposited the regular amount into this account every month during your wife's residency? Trent glanced at the paper. That was a shared arrangement. The deposits came from Dr. Ellis's residency stipend. She deposited her entire paycheck into this joint account. You used that money to pay the bills you just described as your sacrifice. Is that correct? Trent's smile faded. She still needed someone to manage it. Manage it? Rachel repeated the words like she was tasting something sour. Let us move to Exhibit E. She placed a new stack of papers on the stand. These are mortgage records for the marital home. The home is located in McLean, Virginia, valued at a significant amount. Mr. Langford, whose name is on the mortgage? Silence. Mr. Langford, hers. And who made every single monthly payment over the years? She did. But I Exhibit F. Vehicle registrations. Both cars registered to Dr. Nadia Ellis. Both paid in full by Dr. Ellis. Mr. Langford, do you own a vehicle in your name? Trent's neck turned red. I drive one of them. You drive it. You do not own it. Rachel let that distinction breathe. Exhibit G. Investment portfolio statements. Total value significant. Funded entirely by surgical bonuses earned by Dr. Ellis. Mr. Langford, did you contribute any amount at all, to this portfolio? I supported her emotionally. That has value, too. I am asking about financial contributions, Mr. Langford. No. Rachel closed her folder, opened another one. Now, I would like to discuss the nature of that emotional support. She pulled out a printed sheet. I am entering Exhibit H, a series of text messages sent from your phone to Dr. Ellis over the years. Trent sat up straighter. His fingers gripped the armrest. Rachel read the first message aloud. Slowly. Every word clear. You think that degree makes you better than me? You are still just a girl from Southeast. The courtroom was silent. Another message. Nobody respects you. They just feel sorry for you. Trent's jaw tightened. He looked at Harlan. Harlan did not look back. Yet another. Your mother is the only reason anyone takes you seriously. Without her, you are nothing. Rachel set the paper down, picked up a small USB drive. Your Honor, I would also like to enter Exhibit 1, an audio recording of a voicemail left by Mr. Langford at approximately late evening. She pressed play. The courtroom speakers crackled. Trent's voice filled the room, slurred, loud, unmistakable. You would be nothing without my last name. Nothing. You hear me? You should be thanking me every day for making you somebody. The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavier than anything he had said. Nadia still had not moved. Her pen sat untouched. Her eyes stayed forward. But her brother Jamal was gripping his knees so hard, his knuckles had turned pale. Rachel stepped closer to the stand. Mr. Langford, you testified that you supported your wife emotionally. Do these messages represent the kind of emotional support you were referring to? Trent's face flushed red. His composure cracked. She is twisting everything. She always does this. His voice rose sharply. He leaned forward in the chair. She plays the victim. That is what they do. They. The word dropped like a stone into still water. Every person in that courtroom heard it. The judge, the attorneys, the bailiff, the gallery. They. Judge Moore's pen stopped moving. She looked up slowly. Mr. Langford. Her voice was ice. You will address this court with respect. Do I make myself clear? Harlan was already leaning over, whispering urgently in Trent's ear. Trent exhaled, smoothed his tie, forced a smile that looked like it hurt. My apologies, Your Honor. I am just emotional. This has been very difficult for me. Judge Moore stared at him for full seconds before she looked back down at her notes. In the gallery, the court sketch artist was drawing fast. The court reporter's fingers had not stopped. Every word was on the record, and Nadia Ellis still sat perfectly still. Not because she was weak, not because she had nothing to say, because she knew what was coming, and it had not even started yet. Judge Moore called Claire Langford to the stand. Trent's mother rose from the second row of the gallery. She smoothed her cream-colored blazer, touched the pearl necklace at her throat, walked to the witness stand with her chin tilted slightly upward. The posture of a woman who had never been questioned about anything in her life. She sat down, crossed her ankles, folded her hands in her lap, smiled at the judge the way you smile at a neighbor across the fence. Harlan approached her gently. "Mrs. Langford, can you describe your son's character during his marriage? Trent is a good man." Claire's voice was warm, rehearsed. He was a devoted husband. He tried so hard to make that marriage work. I watched him bend over backwards for that woman. That woman. Not Nadia. Not Dr. Ellis. That woman. "And how would you describe your relationship with Dr. Ellis?" Claire tilted her head. "I tried. I really did. But she was not quite the right fit for our family. I always worried the cultural differences would be too much." Harlan nodded, like this was a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Rachel Foster was already on her feet. "Mrs. Langford, you mentioned cultural differences. Could you be more specific about what you mean?" Claire blinked. "I just mean lifestyle, upbringing, the way she was raised versus the way Trent was raised. You know." "I do not know, actually. That is why I am asking." Claire's smile tightened. "We come from different worlds. That is all I meant. It is not a criticism. It is just a fact." Rachel nodded slowly, then opened a folder. "Mrs. Langford, I would like to read a text message you sent to your son. This has been entered as Exhibit J." Claire's smile vanished. Rachel read it aloud. Slowly, every word clear. "I told you not to marry outside your kind. Now look at the mess." The courtroom went dead quiet. Not a shuffle, not a cough. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Claire's face was drained of color. Her fingers tightened around each other in her lap. That was taken out of context. What context would make that statement acceptable, Mrs. Langford? "I was upset. Trent had called me crying. I was just being a mother. A mother who told her son not to marry outside his kind." "That is not what I—" "Those are your words, Mrs. Langford. Sent from your phone to your son. Is there another way to read them?" Claire opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Judge Moore's expression had turned to stone. She wrote something on her notepad, underlined it, wrote something else. "No further questions," Rachel said. Claire stepped down from the stand. She did not look at anyone. She walked back to her seat in the gallery with her eyes fixed on the floor. Her pearls caught the fluorescent light as she sat down. Her hands were shaking. Trent watched his mother return to her seat. His face had changed. The performance was gone. The rehearsed grief, the wounded husband act, all of it had evaporated. What was left was something raw, something ugly. He leaned over to Harlan and muttered loud enough for the first two rows to hear. "This is a joke. She is going to take everything I built." Harlan whispered back sharply, "Keep your voice down. Now." But Trent was past listening. Rachel stood again. "Your Honor, I would like to present the final financial summary, Exhibit K." She distributed packets to the judge and both attorneys. Then, she walked to the center of the room. Over the course of this marriage, Dr. Ellis earned a combined gross income of a significant amount. Mr. Langford earned far less during the same period. Dr. Ellis paid the mortgage in full. She paid both car payments in full. She funded the entire investment portfolio. She covered medical insurance, property taxes, and home maintenance. Rachel paused. "Let the numbers sit. Mr. Langford's financial contribution to the household totaled less than a small percentage of the couple's combined income, and the expenses he did cover, groceries, utilities, minor household items, were paid from a joint account funded primarily by Dr. Ellis's deposits. She turned to Trent. Mr. Langford's claim that he built anything in this marriage is not supported by a single document in this record. Trent's face went scarlet. His chest rose and fell. His hands gripped the edge of the table. Harlan put a hand on his shoulder. "Do not," he whispered. Judge Moore looked at Trent. "Mr. Langford, before I begin deliberation, do you have anything you would like to add?" That was a mistake. Or maybe it was exactly what the moment needed. Trent stood up. Harlan grabbed his arm. "Sit down, Trent. Sit down." Trent pulled free. He was shaking, not from sadness, from rage. The kind of rage that comes when a man who has always believed he was above everyone else suddenly realizes the room does not agree. "This whole system is rigged." His voice cracked. "She gets everything, because courts always side with—" He stopped himself, but only for a second. Then he turned, looked directly at Nadia, and let it all out. "You are worthless trash, Nadia. You hear me? Worthless. Trash." He slammed his palm on the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "You were nothing before me. That fancy degree does not change what you are. You want to play the strong black woman? Fine, play it. But we both know the truth." The gallery erupted. Gasps. A woman in the back row stood up. Jamal Ellis rose to his feet, fists clenched at his sides. The bailiff stepped forward with one hand on his belt. Trent still was not done. "And your mother?" He pointed toward the empty seat in the front row. "That self-righteous woman, she poisoned you against me from day one. She looked at me like I was beneath her, like I was not good enough for her precious daughter." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "A judge? Big deal. She is just another Mr. Langford." Judge Moore's voice cut through the room like a blade. Her gavel came down hard, twice, 3 times. "You are in contempt of this court. Sit down immediately, or you will be removed in handcuffs." "Do I make myself absolutely clear?" Harlan physically pushed Trent into his chair, both hands on his shoulders, pressing down, whispering something fast and furious into his ear. Trent sat, but his chest was still heaving. His eyes were still locked on Nadia. His lip curled. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that feels louder than any scream. The court reporter's hands trembled above the keys. The sketch artist's pencil had snapped. The bailiff stood 2 steps closer than he had been a minute ago. And Nadia Ellis had not moved, not 1 inch. Her back was straight, her hands were folded, her eyes were glassy but steady. She exhaled slowly through her nose. One long, controlled breath. She had heard worse from him. Behind closed doors, in whispered insults over dinner, in voicemails at midnight. This was just the first time he had said it where the world could hear. Judge Moore called a recess. Her voice was calm, but her jaw was tight. She stood and disappeared through the door behind the bench without looking back. The room exhaled. People in the gallery whispered. Some shook their heads. One older man in a gray suit stood up and walked out, muttering something under his breath. A young woman in the back row had her hand over her heart. Nadia rose slowly. She picked up her folder, tucked it under her arm, and walked out of the courtroom into the hallway without a word. Jamal followed her. He did not say anything at first. He just walked beside her. Then he put one hand on her shoulder, a steady hand, the hand of a man who had carried a rifle through deployments and still believed the hardest battles happen at home. Nadia leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and for the first time all morning, she let out one long, shaking breath. The kind of breath that carries everything you have been holding. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. One new message. From Mom. I am on my way. Nadia stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed back slowly. "Mom, you do not have to." Three dots appeared. "Then I am already in the parking lot." Nadia looked at Jamal. He looked at her phone, then back at her. Neither of them said a word. But something shifted in Nadia's eyes. Something quiet. Something that looked a lot like the moment before a storm breaks. She put her phone away, straightened her blazer, and walked back toward the courtroom door. Court reconvened. The gallery filed back in. Chairs scraped. Whispers faded. The bailiff called the room to order. Judge Moore returned to the bench. Her face was unreadable. Trent sat with his arms crossed. He stared at the table in front of him. Harlan had stopped whispering to him. There was nothing left to say. Nadia took her seat. She set her folder down, folded her hands. Same posture, same stillness. But something was different now. There was a steadiness in her shoulders that had not been there before. Something settled. Something ready. Judge Moore opened her mouth to speak. And then the doors opened. Not fast, not dramatic, just a slow, deliberate push. Both doors at the same time. Every head in the courtroom turned. A woman stepped through. She was tall, silver-haired, dressed in a charcoal suit with a silk scarf folded at the collar. Her shoes clicked against the tile floor, steady, unhurried, precise. Each step carried the same rhythm, the rhythm of a woman who had walked into rooms like this for years and never once needed permission. Judge Vivian Ellis. She did not scan the room. She did not search for a seat. She walked straight down the center aisle, with her eyes forward, her chin level, her back as straight as a cathedral wall. The bailiff saw her first. His posture changed instantly, shoulders back, chin up. He gave a small nod, the kind of nod that is not taught. It is earned. A woman in the gallery leaned to her husband. "Who is that?" He shook his head, but he sat up straighter too. Everyone did. The room shifted without anyone deciding to shift. The air changed weight. Judge Moore looked up from the bench. Her pen stopped moving. Her eyes widened just slightly, just enough. She knew exactly who had just entered her courtroom. Vivian reached the front row of the gallery, the seat that had been empty all morning. She turned, sat down, smoothed her jacket once, folded her hands in her lap. Then she looked at Nadia. It was not a grand gesture. No wave, no smile, no words. Just a mother looking at her daughter. A single, quiet nod. "I am here." Nadia's chin dipped, barely a centimeter. Her eyes glistened for half a second. Then she was still again. On the other side of the aisle, Harlan leaned toward Trent. "Who is that?" Trent muttered. He glanced over his shoulder at the silver-haired woman in the front row. "That is her mother, the one I was just talking about." Harlan's face went white. Not pale, white. Like every drop of blood had left his body at once. He grabbed Trent's arm, hard. "That is Judge Vivian Ellis." Harlan's whisper was barely a breath. D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. She is one of the most senior federal judges in the country. Trent blinked. "So?" "She is just a..." She was on the short list for the Supreme Court. Twice. The word twice landed on Trent like a physical weight. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. He turned slowly and looked at Vivian Ellis again. She was already looking at him, not glaring, not scowling, not angry. She simply looked at him, the way a woman looks at something small, something she has seen 1,000 times before, something that does not surprise her and never will. Years of staring down corrupt officials, corporate lawyers, hardened criminals who had done things Trent could not imagine. She had looked at all of them with this same face, patient, unshakable, absolute. Trent turned back around. His legs started bouncing. He stared at the table. He could not look up. The room had changed. Everyone felt it. The bailiff felt it. The court reporter felt it. The sketch artist felt it. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to buzz at a different frequency. Judge Moore cleared her throat. Before the recess, the court heard testimony from both parties and reviewed all submitted exhibits. Her voice was precise now, sharpened. I also observed the respondent's conduct in this courtroom today, which has been entered into the record in full. She paused, looked at Trent. Mr. Langford, I want to be very clear. This court has a complete record of every word you spoke today. Your statements, your tone, and your behavior will be weighed accordingly in my ruling. Trent did not move, did not nod, did not breathe. Vivian Ellis sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes forward. She did not need to speak. She did not need to intervene. She did not need to do anything at all. She was there, and that was enough. Judge Moore delivered her ruling without hesitation. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and financial documentation submitted by both parties, this court finds the following. She looked directly at Trent. Mr. Langford's claim to equitable distribution is denied. The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that Dr. Ellis was the sole meaningful financial contributor to this marriage. The mortgage, vehicle payments, investment accounts, and the vast majority of household expenses were paid entirely by Dr. Ellis. Trent's mouth opened slightly. Harlan placed a hand on his arm. Trent did not even notice. Mr. Langford is awarded his personal belongings only. Dr. Ellis retains full ownership of the marital home, both vehicles, and all investment accounts. Judge Moore flipped a page. Additionally, this court finds Mr. Langford in contempt for his conduct during today's proceedings. He is fined a significant amount and warned that any further disruption in this courtroom or in any communication with Dr. Ellis will result in immediate incarceration. Do I make myself absolutely clear? She removed her glasses, set them on the bench, and said the last part slowly. The language used by the respondent today was not merely disrespectful, it was dehumanizing. This court does not tolerate racial animus in any form. Mr. Langford, your words are on the record. They will follow you. The gavel came down, once, final. Trent sat frozen. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. He looked at Harlan. Harlan was already closing his briefcase. In the front row, Vivian Ellis did not smile, did not nod, did not move. She simply watched justice do what justice does when it is given the truth. The courtroom emptied slowly. People stood in small clusters, whispering. The sketch artist tore off her page and started a new one. The bailiff held the door open with the expression of a man who had just witnessed something he would talk about for years. Nadia walked into the hallway. Jamal was beside her. Neither spoke. They did not need to. Then footsteps, fast ones. Nadia. Nadia, wait. Trent jogged up behind her. His tie was loosened. His hair was out of place. His eyes were red and darting. Everything about him had changed. The arrogance was gone. What replaced it was something smaller, desperate. Listen to me. I did not mean it. His voice cracked. I was angry. You know how I get when I am angry. I say things I do not mean. Can we just talk about this, please? Nadia stopped walking. She turned around slowly, looked at him, really looked at him. Maybe for the first time in years. You said exactly what you meant. Her voice was quiet, steady. For the first time in years, you told the truth. She turned and walked away. Jamal stepped between them. He did not say a word. He did not need to. He was tall and strong, and the look on his face said everything. Trent did not follow. Moments later, Trent stood in the parking lot with Harlan. So, what is next? Trent asked. We appeal, right? We can. Harlan set his briefcase on the hood of his car. There is no we. I am withdrawing as your counsel, Trent. You cannot do that. You are my attorney. I was your attorney. Past tense. Harlan opened his car door. You made my job impossible in there. And frankly, what you said was indefensible. I will not be associated with it. Find someone else. He got in, started the engine, drove away without looking back. Trent stood alone in the parking lot. The sun was directly overhead. His shadow was a small, dark shape at his feet. A minute later, Claire Langford walked out of the courthouse. Trent turned to her, waiting for comfort, waiting for his mother to tell him it would be okay. I told you to keep your temper. Claire's voice was cold, flat. I told you, Trent, over and over, and you could not hold it together for one single hearing. Mom. Now, look at what you have done to this family's name. She was not sorry for what he said. She was sorry he said it where people could hear. She walked to her car, got in, drove away. Trent stood alone, jacket wrinkled, tie crooked. No lawyer, no mother, no wife. The courthouse door behind him closed with a heavy click. By evening, the court transcript, every word of it, was public record. A clerk who had been in the courtroom mentioned it to a colleague. The colleague mentioned it to a friend. The friend was a journalist. By that night, reporter Natalie Shaw, from a Northern Virginia news outlet, had the full transcript on her desk. By morning, Trent's employer, a regional insurance firm where he worked as a mid-level claims adjuster, received phone calls asking if they were aware of what their employee had said in open court. He was placed on administrative leave, effective immediately. The dominoes had started falling, and not a single one was going to stop. Natalie Shaw published her article the next morning. The headline read, "Husband's Racist Tirade in Fairfax Court Goes Viral After Federal Judge Mother-in-Law Walks In." The article was thorough. It included the full context of the divorce proceedings, Nadia's career, the financial evidence, Trent's outburst, quoted directly from the court transcript, and the moment Judge Vivian Ellis walked through those doors. By that afternoon, the article had been shared thousands of times. By evening, it was everywhere. Cable news picked it up first, then national papers, then social media took it and ran. Clips of the courthouse exterior, reporters outside, people reacting as they left, circulated on every platform. Someone in the gallery had sketched Trent mid-outburst, finger pointed, face twisted. That sketch became the image everyone shared. The hashtag started small. A few accounts, a few retweets. Then it caught fire. Justice for Nadia. It trended for days. Legal commentators appeared on morning shows and evening panels. They dissected Trent's language. They broke down the court transcript line by line. One former federal prosecutor said on camera, "What Mr. Langford said was not just offensive. It was a textbook example of racial animus used to dehumanize a spouse during litigation." Any judge in the country would have held him in contempt. Another analyst pointed to the text messages entered as evidence. The ones where Trent called Nadia just a girl from Southeast and told her she would be nothing without his last name. This was not a one-time outburst, she said. This was a pattern. The courtroom was just the first time he could not hide it. Then, the former colleagues started talking. One by one, people who had worked alongside Trent at the insurance firm came forward. They spoke anonymously at first, then some used their names. A former coworker told Natalie Shaw that Trent routinely made jokes about black clients. He called their claims suspicious more often than white clients with identical paperwork. He once said in a team meeting that certain neighborhoods were not worth insuring. When a black supervisor was promoted above him years ago, Trent told a colleague, "This place is going downhill." The insurance company had no choice. They released a statement, 3 sentences, corporate font, company letterhead. We do not tolerate hate speech or discriminatory behavior of any kind. Following a thorough internal review, Mr. Trent Langford's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. We are committed to fostering an inclusive workplace for all employees and clients. Trent read the statement on his phone while sitting in his mother's guest bedroom. He had moved back in days after the hearing. He had nowhere else to go. But losing his job was just the beginning. Rachel Foster filed a civil suit the following week: emotional distress, defamation. The filing cited Trent's courtroom outburst, the text messages, the voicemails, and the sustained pattern of racial abuse throughout the marriage. The text messages were already public. The voicemail, the one where Trent slurred that Nadia would be nothing without his last name, was played on 2 national news broadcasts. Legal experts called it devastating. Trent needed a lawyer. He called firms. The first said they had a conflict of interest. The second said they were not taking new clients. The third never called back. The fourth was honest. Mr. Langford, I read the transcript. I listened to the voicemail. I am going to be straightforward with you. There is not a firm in Northern Virginia that wants to be the face of your defense right now. He eventually found representation, a solo practitioner named Alan Burke, who worked out of a small office. Burke was competent, quiet. He reviewed the case and gave Trent one piece of advice: settle quickly before this gets worse. Trent resisted at first. I am not giving her another dime. Burke set the file down. Trent, you called your wife worthless trash in front of a judge. You referenced her race. It is on the record. It is on the news. It is on the internet forever. If this goes to trial, a jury will see every text you sent, hear every voicemail you left, and watch you sit in that chair while your own words play on a speaker. You will lose, and it will cost you everything you have left. Trent settled. The terms were not gentle: a significant financial payment to Nadia, essentially returning any remaining shared assets, plus damages for emotional distress, court-mandated anger management, a racial sensitivity program, months minimum for both, and a restraining order. No contact with Nadia. No contact with her family. No contact with her workplace. No approaching within feet. Violation meant arrest. No warnings. No second chances. Trent signed the papers in Burke's office on an afternoon. He did not speak. He signed each page, stood up, and walked out. Through all of this, Judge Nadia Ellis said nothing publicly. No interviews, no statements, no press conferences, not a single quote attributed to her in any article. Reporters called her office. Her clerk responded with the same line every time. Judge Ellis does not comment on personal family matters. She did not need to comment. Her presence in that courtroom had already said everything. Legal blogs wrote about the moment for weeks. Judicial commentators analyzed it from every angle. One professor at Georgetown Law wrote an op-ed that captured it perfectly. Judge Ellis did not need to say a word. She did not intervene. She did not pull rank. She sat in the gallery like any other mother and let the system do its work. And in doing so, she reminded everyone in that courtroom and everyone watching from the outside that justice is not just a concept written in textbooks. It is a living, breathing institution. And sometimes it shows up wearing a charcoal suit. In the months that followed, Nadia Ellis did what she had always done. She worked. Georgetown University Hospital featured her in their annual report. A medical journal published a profile on her pioneering techniques in pediatric cardiac surgery. She was invited to speak at Howard University's commencement, her alma mater. She stood at the podium in a black gown. She did not mention Trent. She did not mention the divorce. She did not mention the courtroom. She talked about resilience, about self-worth, about the difference between what people call you and what you answer to. Someone will try to define you, she told the graduates. They will use words designed to make you small. Let them talk. Your job is not to argue with small people. Your job is to keep building something they could never tear down. The auditorium stood, every single person. Nadia smiled, looked down at the front row. Her mother sat there, hands folded, eyes shining. The same quiet nod. I am here. So, where are they now? Nadia Ellis was promoted to Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Georgetown University Hospital months after the trial. She bought a townhouse in Alexandria, her name on the deed, her money on the check, her choice on every wall, every room, every detail. No one else's opinion is required. She started a mentorship foundation for young Black women pursuing careers in STEM and medicine. She named it Ellis Forward. The first class had mentees. The second class had more. By the third year, there was a wait list. She never spoke publicly about the divorce, not once. Reporters asked. Podcast hosts asked. She declined every time. Her work spoke for her. It always had. Judge Vivian Ellis continued serving on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. She handled cases the way she always had, with precision, fairness, and a silence that carried more weight than most people's speeches. At a private family dinner, months after the dust had settled, Vivian set her fork down and looked at her daughter across the table. I did not walk into that courtroom as a judge, she said. I walked in as your mother. She paused. But I am proud that both of those women saw justice done that day. Nadia reached across the table and held her mother's hand. Neither of them said anything else. They did not need to. Jamal Ellis stayed close. He checked in on Nadia every Sunday. Phone call at the usual time. Never missed one. He later told a reporter off the record, my sister did not need saving. She needed witnesses, and that courtroom gave her plenty. Rachel Foster went on to handle several high-profile divorce cases involving domestic abuse and racial discrimination. She credited the Langford case with changing how courts treat verbal abuse when it is racially motivated. Before this case, too many judges dismissed racial insults as emotional outbursts, she said. After this case, that excuse does not fly anymore. And Trent Langford? He lost his career, his savings, his social standing, his reputation. He completed the anger management program. He failed the racial sensitivity course on his first attempt, passed on his second. Barely. He moved into his mother's spare bedroom in a small town outside Richmond. He did not remarry. He did not find new employment in the insurance industry. His name was the first result on every search engine. Attached permanently to the transcript, the articles, and that sketch of him pointing across a courtroom with rage on his face. Claire Langford stopped attending her garden club. She told neighbors she was taking a break. The neighbors knew why. Everyone in town had read the article. Everyone had seen her text message. Do not marry outside your kind. Those 5 words followed her the way Trent's followed him. Okay, real talk. This story? Made up. Fiction. But while you were listening, be honest. You were not thinking, nah, this is fake. You were thinking about somebody you know, somebody who has been called worthless. And that part? That is way too real. So, let me ask you something. If you were sitting in that courtroom gallery, if you heard someone say those words to another human being right in front of a judge, right in front of everybody, would you have stayed silent or would you have stood up? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this story hit you somewhere real, if it made you feel something, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe, because we have got more stories like this coming. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is next. One last thing. Your worth is not decided by the person standing across from you in a courtroom. It is not measured by someone else's anger or ignorance or fear. Your worth was settled long before they ever opened their mouth. Do not let anyone rewrite that story for you.